So my topic for today is spiritual friendship, and I have to say I am brimming, overflowing with emotion as I kind of contemplate joy and just move. My heart is so moved, and just now, like just these offerings that have just been announced and are being offered are by, this is the Sangha. This is spiritual friendship. This is amazing. You know. I think, I hope you all know how welcome you are here. That that each of you belong here if you want to be here. That you get to be fully who you are and be here. And Gil, I love Gil as a teacher, and one of his teachings is, you're a member of IMC if you want to be. If you don't like membership, no problem. You can still come. Like whatever it is that works for you. That's how spacious it is. And I guess can you zoom in on this for the YouTube folks? I'll pass this around, but maybe you've noticed this. When you come in the door, there's a transparent logo on the front door, and this is also posted by the door. It's still in draft form, but it says, "All are welcome here." All are welcome here. And there was a group of us that worked on, collaborating to create this sign. And wow, was it a project? To think about, how do you represent everyone being welcomed? And I'm not suggesting we did it, but, really not. But it was the best that we could do, so it was good enough for now. And I love it. It's beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna move my arm now. And just kind of, just to talk about what this includes is, 3 hands, right? 3 hands of different races, colors, ethnicities, together holding a young tree, a Bodhi tree, which is what the Buddha is said to have enlightened under. That it takes us all coming together, and that it's our heartfulness, it's our kindfulness, it's our mindfulness that create the soil and conditions for all of us to thrive. All of us to thrive. And then, of course, we have a rainbow here for, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, asexual, non-conforming, gender, non-binary, everything, two-spirited plus people in our world. And when we were working on this, we tried to list all the kinds of identities that we could think of. And how can we represent this? And we tried. You should have seen the other models. They were a little too much. This kind of was, like I said, the best that we could do. So I'll just pass it around, and you can look at it or not. Just, allow it to flow. I just want you all the opportunity to see it. Yeah. And so, as I was kind of growing, nurturing, yeast inside of me, this talk and my reflections on spiritual friendship, I was thinking about a name for it, a title for it. And first I thought, well, mindfulness is spiritual friendship. And then I thought about heartfulness is spiritual friendship. And then I remembered Ajahn Brahm wrote a book called Kind-fullness. And that just, it's like, oh yeah, so mindfulness and heartfulness. And there's this term in Pali, citta, which represents heart and mind together. Heart and mind together. Because friendship, really, especially spiritual friendship, does require the heart and mind to come together. Because to be kind, we have to engage the mental capacity to assess a situation, to implore and work from wise view, wise intention, and have wise action. We need the mind to be engaged. And that without a quality of the heart, the kind, sort of the quality of this, the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, mudita, joy, and equanimity, balance. We absolutely need all of these things. And so this term kindfulness for me really was where I settled. Kindfulness is spiritual practice. Kindfulness. And spiritual friendship is what this Sangha is made from. It's completely what the Sangha is made from. It's amazing, actually. So everything here started in I think it was at the, what's it called? Hillary, what was the name of the friend? What was it called? But it was called the Friend, what? Do you remember what it was called? There was like a small center that let us come and practice. Like I wasn't even part of the Sangha. It was like maybe 6 or 9 people or 10 or 12 or whatever. And then they brought Gil in to be a teacher. And they just rented spaces until this Sangha grew, and they raised money to buy this building. This building was a church. And that's probably how we got it, because the church, owners and Gil met, and they appreciated what we were going to be doing here, sitting in silence, right? So everything here is because of dana, generosity, and people coming together and working together. And the image I have for Sangha in this in this place is like a spider web. There are so many people doing little bits to keep and create this space. Unbelievable number of people. And so who here volunteers in some way? Just raise your hand. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8, 9, 10. I don't know. This is like, a quarter of us sitting here. At least. And right now there's 150 people in person and online sitting Gil's 3-week retreat, which means a lot of people who would normally be here, who are volunteers, are not here. So probably half of us would be normally volunteers. Hillary, does that sound about right? As our amazing volunteer coordinator, Hillary. And so the spiderweb image for me is so powerful, because it's like every little intersection of the web is people holding hands, taking one piece from the next person. Like getting a flyer printed takes a person to teach, and that person usually creates a draft, and then somebody else prints it, and like there's just everything here is hand to hand. And I was thinking of organizational charts. And you know how they're like kind of fairly linear, they have like little veins that come off, and there's this stacking. We're a spider web. Our organizational chart is an absolute spider web. And there's often things that, people leave and come and go. So just like a spider web is imperfect, we are imperfect. We are absolutely imperfect. And there are places where things fall apart and don't go well, and then there's people that come in and connect this strand with that strand, like this, or their toes with their feet too, it's amazing. And then another thing about this spider web is that it's loving kindness. It's the kindness and the compassion and the joy and the equanimity that the practitioners, these people holding hands, creating this space that is, tenuous and strong, but bringing that heart quality lights up the web like golden strands. Absolutely, the heart quality just moves through the whole thing and makes it absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So thank you for being here, because also just being here, even if you're not a volunteer, you're supporting my practice. Because if I didn't have somebody that I was inspired to share this with, all of this goodness that's been coming up for me would not be here. It would not be arising in the same kind of way. It's your practice, your attending, your coming that supports my practice deeply, deeply. So I'll give you a little bit of I have no idea how much I'll get to, but these are the things that I have in mind. I like to let you know where I want to go before I go there. So number one, how powerful spiritual friendship is for our practice, how supportive it is. It's incredibly supportive. I've been talking about that already. I'll say a little bit more. I have a sutta called Good-Hearted Friends, Advice for Lay People, that comes from the teaching of the Buddha to share. I want to highlight the importance of understanding that spiritual friendship is actually a training. It is something we train in. It's not haphazard. And then there's this important part of suffering that is part of spiritual friendship, and which is, in all of us, we're conditioned, right? This is what the Dharma Buddha taught us. We get conditioned by life. Automatic pilot takes over and we're no longer present. Well, this is really true in relationships, as you know, right? As you know. So understanding that deeply is incredibly important to knowing and being able to be a spiritual friend. And then, maybe I'll say this now, but another part of my inspiration for this topic tonight is that starting in October, on Thursday nights, I'll start a 2-month series on mindful speaking and mindful listening. It's incredibly, incredibly important part of our life and being spiritual friends to each other. And I have a practice. Some of you may be aware of the raft practice. Anybody know about raft? Not many, a couple. So I'll talk a little bit about how to use raft in the context of relationship, spiritual friendship. So I have a poem to read to you, and maybe before I read it, I'll just ask you to think about, bring to mind a spiritual friend, somebody who's been a spiritual friend to you. And it could be somebody you know, or just somebody you know of who's done things that have inspired you. And what are their qualities? What kind of qualities do these friends, spiritual friends, have? And anyone who is willing to speak, if you share out loud any of those qualities, I'll say them and repeat them to make sure people in YouTube who are joining us can hear. Is anybody willing to share what qualities came up for them? Yes? Presence. Brave. And non-judgmental. Thank you. Loving. Kind. Again? Available. Nice. Curious. Trust. What makes someone trustworthy? You can share, and it's confidential, right? And you know maybe that they've got your back. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, put it up here is great, so I don't forget it. Got to put it back on the bulletin board. Consistent. Beautiful. Insightful. Mm. Perceptive. Oh, receptive. Yes. Beautiful. Honest. Oh, truth. Yes. Accepting and caring. Good listener. Mm-hmm. Really important. I was listening to a talk by James Baraz on spiritual friendship, and so this is like third hand, right? And he was talking about somebody who teaches nonviolent communication a lot, and that he said that person said that when it comes to nonviolent communication, it was the listening that mattered the most. Yeah. So there's more, right? It's okay. This was good. And so here's this poem, and the title of the poem is Aftermath. I'll say more at the end of the poem. Those seeds you planted in me with your words, all through the night they rooted, grew stems, sprouted leaves. By morning, I'm in full bloom. My thoughts a rebellion of petals, a mutiny of beauty. Where once only shadows spread, all day your words unfold in layers of purple and unruly gold. I like it when people stare everywhere I go. I share this, the aftermath of your kindness. Right? These are the seeds, these are the gifts, the qualities that have been given by our spiritual friends. And when they take hold, it bloom in us. Wow, what an aftermath. This is by Rosemary Traumer. So what did the Buddha say about spiritual friendship? He actually said, some pretty poignant things. In the one sutta, he says, with regard to external factors, so things in the environment outside of ourselves, I don't envision any other single factor like admirable friendship as doing so much for a monk in training. No other, not any other factor like admirable friendship can do so much for a monk in training. That's pretty significant. I'm sure you've heard I chose not to bring this sutta into because it's so well referenced, but there's this conversation between Ananda. Do you know who Ananda is? The cousin and the attendant to the Buddha. And there's this conversation where the Buddha and Ananda are sitting together, and Ananda's probably, feeling really uplifted by spiritual friendship, and they're sitting there and he's talking, and Ananda says, "Noble one, O Lord, friendship is half of the spiritual path." And the Buddha responds by saying, "No, Ananda, don't say that. It's all of the path." It's very, very pivotal. Really, 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 really powerful. There's a Pali word for spiritual friendship, and it's Kalyana Mita. I like this word. KM for short. Kalyana Mita. You're my Kalyana Mita, my KM. Kalyana can be translated as spiritual. Can also be translated as good, true, virtuous, upright, or beneficial. And mita is the same root as metta, loving kindness. Loving kindness. Good friend, spiritual friend, virtuous friend. Yeah. In another sutta, Digha Nikaya 31, the Buddha gave a teaching about good-hearted friends, and it's advice for lay people. That's us, right? We're lay people. And he's talking to a young man, And he said, be aware of these 4 good-hearted friends. And he describes them as a helper, one who endures, one who's a mentor, and one who's compassionate. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these 4 qualities. And the Buddha said, the helpful friend can be seen to be a loyal friend in 4 ways. He looks after you when you're inattentive. Right? Looks after you when you're inattentive. He looks after you when your possessions are inattentive. You're unattended. He is a refuge when you're afraid. That's profound. That just hit me. A refuge when you're afraid. Right? How? It's not everybody who can hold us with their presence or listen when we're afraid. Not everybody can do that. It's a really big thing to be stable enough to be with somebody when they're afraid. To see them with their potential still intact, right? And then the last thing he says is when some business is to be done, he lets you have twice what you ask for. Twice. So this generosity, right? This generosity. There's this is an example from Thich Nhat Hanh's Sangha of this idea of being helpful and twice what one is asking for. They created something called Second Body Sangha. Second Body Sangha. We established a second body practice to deepen our relationships and to support our practice. Each participant has 2 bodies. A Sangha member they care for and their own body. The care was determined by mutual consent and might entail a weekly phone call or a daily sitting practice. Pretty cool. I read, there's an article, and I think it's Lion's Roar, somebody wrote about it who was there and described, waking up or being sick and, having food show up for him because his second body brought him food. And I just really appreciated this idea, this notion, the way it was framed, right? Second body. Just your second body, like somebody who's there just to do these things. And there's something about that too that's like, you don't get any gold star for being a good friend, a second body. You're just acting like you would for your own body, right? You have this care for another like you care for yourself. It's just beautiful. The second quality is described as an enduring friend, the friend who is the same in happy and unhappy times. Can be seen as a loyal friend in 4 ways. He tells you his secrets. She guards your secrets. They do not let you down in misfortune. They would even sacrifice their life for you. So what does enduring through good and bad times friendship look like? What does that mean? Here at IMC, it might be, somebody hasn't been coming for a long time and we welcome them back no matter what, right? It might mean, being willing to listen to somebody's fears or difficulties or joys over and over again or in really great detail. The third quality is the friend who points out what is good for you. It's also described as a mentoring friendship. The friend who points out what is good for you can be seen to be a loyal friend in 4 ways. They keep you from wrongdoing. They support you in doing good. They inform you of what you did not know, and they point out the path to freedom. In our scene here, we have kind of formal and informal mentors. A formal mentor might be a teacher, right? Somebody who's in a role as a teacher. An informal mentor might be the way somebody is sitting during meditation that inspires you. The way somebody behaves and demonstrates these qualities of loving kindness and, compassion and sympathetic joy. And, even Gil he prefers being thought of as a spiritual friend over a teacher. There's something really, connected about that, isn't there? Really connected. That's the word that comes to mind for me. I think I'll say here too, just that, this is certainly how he came to be my teacher. Was I started, volunteering. I showed up, I supported him, he supported me in all kinds of ways. Like, he did a lovely job with the bell. I remember the first time I managed an event and I hit the bell at the end of the sit, everybody jumped out of their seats. It was so loud, oh my God. And, he was so kind to me after this. He was just so kind. Like, brought me over, helped me learn how to hit the bell, and just said, there's no mistakes here. There's no mistakes here. Wow. Thich Nhat Hanh says, what is most important is to find peace and to share it with others, right? This is a spiritual friend. This is what Gil did for me. He has found peace and he shared it with me in that moment, and many others. So spiritual friendship is a training. It is actually something, it is like practice. It is practice. It is the embodiment of our practice. It's bringing our practice not just from this inner realm, but to everything that we do. And, incredibly important part of our training in the Eightfold Path, right, which is said to be the way to freedom. In the middle of that is sila, or ethical or virtuous action. And it includes wise action, wise speech, wise livelihood. And wise action is the abstaining of killing living beings, right? Abstaining from taking what is not given, abstaining from false speech, abstaining from harmful sexuality, and abstaining from intoxicants that cloud the mind and cause heedlessness. So by engaging in these 5 wise actions, we're abandoning a lot of greed and a lot of hatred, and hopefully a lot of delusion too. So this is a really important part of how we train. These are things that we don't just do, when we're, casually. They're things that we do thoughtfully, mindfully. There are these 4 Brahma Viharas, which are kind of essentially expressions of love, spiritual love. And they're really healthy, emotional, mental states that really support us. And they arise without craving, aversion, and ego. If we have too much craving, aversion, and ego, they don't really arise up. And they're helpful emotions that are much more likely to arise when we're not preoccupied, and when we're not kind of caught in craving and aversion. So this is core to our practice, right? It's kind of like we can notice if we're in a crowd, is there kindness present? Am I happy or envious with somebody else's joy? Right? If we're envious, we've got craving or aversion happening. So it's this beautiful mirror for us to find ourselves, to find the qualities that are active in our heart and mind at any one time. How we respond to each other is a reflection for us of what's happening within ourselves. It helps us find and notice and recognize. And, the way Gil put this is his sentence. Contrary to the popular idea of falling in love is a mysterious process out of our control, the Buddha emphasized cultivating our capacity for love. Cultivating our capacity. So it's not something that just, is this biochemical rush. It's something that we grow, we train. And it's these kinds of love is different than sensual desire. It's different than affection that's entangled with attachment and the need for reciprocity. So sometimes, when we hear the teachings of letting go and not clinging, people feel like, well, but I'm attached to my family and my partner, and does that mean I'm not supposed to be? No. What we need to abandon is the craving, not the love. The clinging, not the love. It's the whole grabbing onto, the expectations, the wanting something back, wanting somebody to be different, wanting to control what people do. That is what we need to let go of, not the love. Not the love. So with loving kindness, it's this wish for everyone to be happy, and that's happy in their own way, not my way. It's respect, showing respect, right, to the dignity and uniqueness of each person, and, to freedom. I like to say, let you be you and me be me. Right? Creating the conditions for us each to flower fully the way we are, for who we are, into what we like our heart most wants us to become. Christina Feldman wrote, in the cultivation of metta, friendship is turned into a verb. Learning what it is to actively, intentionally, and consciously befriend all people, including ourselves, all events, and all experience. The second Brahma-vihara, which, this first one, loving kindness, is really foundational. It helps us kind of get things going. So it's really the starting place for most of us with the Brahma-viharas. And from it, we start to grow the capacity to have compassion, which I love the Ayya Khema's teaching, which is, you suffer just like me, and just like me, just like you, I suffer. So it's, you suffer too, just like me, and I suffer just like you. There's we all suffer, right? So having the capacity to attune to suffering and see it as this thing that we all share in common, and to have compassion for that, and then the wish to be a support for the end of that suffering. And how we help or don't help with the suffering is really important to attend to. And this is where we come back to this idea of kindfulness, bringing in the mind. There's this, a book, I was trying to think of the name of it, the happiness hypothesis maybe. And there's a metaphor in the book about an elephant and a rider. Anybody know this book? No? Yeah? Is it Happiness Hypothesis? Is that the name of it? Yeah. Jonathan Haidt. And so he talks about the elephant as, like our body is the biggest part of us. And the biggest part of us is also so much is unconscious or semi-conscious. This is the beauty of how our mind is evolved, and it's also potentially the liability of how our mind has evolved. Because it's like there's so much that we need just to operate on an automatic level for functioning in this world. There's just way too many things that if we had to pay attention to them in detail, that there's no way we'd have awareness left for anything else. It's like, and when I was in high school, I volunteered in the special needs classroom, and the assignment for me was to sit down and write how many steps it takes to tie a shoe. I was shocked. I think it was 30 something. I was absolutely shocked. I was floored. And so if you think about, that's just one teeny tiny task. And there's so many of these things. And this is where there's this brilliance of this elephant that just knows learns how to do these things, right? And can do them so that we can be a rider, we can stay aware. But we also have to grow our awareness. We have to kind of keep growing it, especially as things become more and more routine, familiar to us. Because we go to sleep as the writer. We go to sleep if we don't work on staying present, and that's mindfulness, staying awake and aware. And all the things in our life, that happen to us, we get born into a body, into a family, into a community, culture, society, and our conditioning starts before we're born. The tone of our parents' voices, whether or not we're kept or adopted, who ends up being there to raise us, how we're treated by the people around us, what our third grade teacher tells us about our drawings. All of these things go deeply stored into this elephant, and they inform how we experience. And I like to think about, in the amygdala, this is sort of like the storehouse of memory, and there's something I like to think about as like the librarian. And so something is happening, and the librarian, without our telling us to do it, goes and searches all the memories. Says, "What's like this? Oh, this is like this, and this is like this," and it chooses, and it says, "Okay, here you go. This is what's happening," right? And so our present moment is informed by our pasts. And most of that was not anything you chose to put in there. A lot of it you probably really wish wasn't there. And a lot of it you don't even know is there. It's like the water you're swimming in. Gil talked last week about the training in deep diversity that we did as a, Sangha. There's a book called Deep Diversity written by Shakil Chaudhry. And he's a mindfulness practitioner, and he wrote about bias and racism and oppression, and how can we bring our practice to this world and get free from, for me, how do I get free from what I have internalized and didn't want around my gender, about my sexual identity, about my race? As a white person, how do I get free from that conditioning that I have? How do I free you from the conditioning I have about your gender, your identity, your race, whoever you are? How do I free you, and how do I free myself? This is incredibly important work. And in the Sangha, these conditions, this bias, these experiences that we have, they're going to all bubble up. They're going to all bubble up in various ways. So it's incredibly important to be humble and to be listening and to be noticing and remembering that when things come up for you and you're looking out at somebody else and you're thinking it, that comes from your story. That comes from your story. And, you know, as a white person, there's so much conditioning around like thinking my experience is the norm. Like that's how it is. And so it's really easy to look out into the world and see others as different. I have a practice of, when I see that happening, wait, look at me. How am I different? I'm different. What's happening for me? What's my reference point here? Not about you, me. What's me? What's going on in here that's me? To help me let go a little bit of that so I can more clearly see you. And Thich Nhat Hanh has this phrase, when he's talking about being a spiritual friend and meeting someone with compassion, he says, it's important to ask if we understand the other person, not to assume we do. So he says, sweetheart, do I know you well enough? Asking, do I know you well enough to assume that I can respond to you in a way that's truly compassionate? Because if I'm responding to you from my story, my conditioning, my past, my bias, I might just do more harm. So compassion is tricky because we have this elephant, the heart gets moved, and the elephant wants to rescue and take care of people. And it's so powerful unless the rider is really present, really awake and aware. The elephant can, like the bull in the china shop, right? Can really trample over people. And that emotional conditioning, there's emotions I feel like are like a drive system. They're motivating action. If you think about it, if you look at, if you've seen those little emojis with faces, right? We use them on our phones and charts. Just the facial expression tells you so much about, what somebody is feeling, right? And you can imagine, what is the posture of somebody who's sad, right? There's this whole intense biophysiological thing that comes with a feeling. So there's this, we're not even aware sometimes how we're feeling and we're expressing it, whether it's anger, sadness, joy. So this is the elephant energy, this automatic, natural, beautiful intelligence in the system that gets polluted over time. But it needs to be managed. We need to be aware so that it doesn't just drive our behaviors. So the third Brahma Vihara is mudita, which is, sympathetic joy or joy. It's like shared joy. It's like when somebody tells you something, like yesterday I had a friend text me and said, I'm really great today. And I felt so happy. I really was like, yay, that's so great, right? That's so great. And I think, joy, there's a lot, like if you follow neuroscience, if you listen to Rick Hansen or a lot of other people that are teaching about happiness right now and making our brains feel better, we have this tendency to not appreciate and settle and receive the joy that comes up in our life, even for ourselves, the small little joys. Like this morning, I took a picture of the sky. I have a friend who we send photos each morning if we get outside for early morning light, because it's supposed to be very helpful for sleep, right? To get exposure to the early morning sunlight within half an hour of waking up. So it said, I believe it. But so we'll take pictures when we go out, when we actually make it. So this morning I took this picture of the sky, and it was like confetti, like clouds. She said when she first looked at it, it looked like stars in the skies. It was just this beautiful moment. Just taking this picture, doing this practice, going out, taking this picture, sending it was like, wow, this is It helps me connect with the joy. Take it in. Don't miss it. Right? And this, when we don't miss the joy, the little joys in our life, there's a lot more ease and ability to connect with the joy of others. When we're really disconnected from the joy in our life, we're going to miss the joy in others. We're going to feel envious, resentful, hurt, left out. So it's really a practice, really important practice for us to take it seriously, to take sips of the goodness, to take it all in. Yeah. What time are we ending? What time are we supposed to end? At what time? 10:45, 3 minutes ago. Okay. Yeah, well, I have more to say, but hopefully I'll see you again. And like I said, I'll be starting the mindful listening and speaking, and Thursday nights at 6:30 to 9, 6:30 to 8, sorry, here, in person only. And I just, thank you. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate your attention and just everything. Yeah, thank you.